You are listening to the Nurse Documentation Podcast, brought to you by Nightingale.
Nurse documentation. Protect the care you gave. Protect the license you hold. With every note you save. Nightingale, where good care is safe.
Welcome. Let's get right to it. This isn't just another training lecture. Think of this as a coaching session, just you and me. And it's designed for one reason, to give you real clarity and, honestly, some calm and confidence for your next tracer. We're going to take that anxiety that pops up when you hear the surveyors are here, and we're going to replace it with practical, defensible strategies. And these aren't just about passing a survey. They're about protecting you, they're about protecting your patients, and they're about protecting that license you worked so incredibly hard for.
Okay, so let's dive in. Here's our roadmap for our time together. First, we're going to talk about what a tracer really is, get beyond that idea of a simple checklist. Then, we'll walk through exactly how they happen on your unit, step by step, so there are no surprises. We're going to spend a good chunk of time looking at your documentation through a surveyor's eyes. This part is absolutely crucial. After that, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of those high-risk scenarios they always look for. We'll also cover the skill of answering their questions safely, and then we'll wrap it all up with a new way to think about this whole process. By the end, you'll have the tools and the mindset to really take control of your next tracer.
All right, let's start by totally reframing what a tracer is. You know, most of us see it as an audit, right? A test we have to pass. But that's not how a surveyor sees it at all. For them, it is like they're reading a story. They are following one single patient's journey through your care. And your chart is the book they are reading. Every single entry, every clicked box, every timed and dated note is just another sentence in that chapter. And you have to remember, they don't know you. They have no idea how busy your shift was. They only know the story that is written down.
Let's just start by acknowledging this feeling, that knot in your stomach when you hear surveyors are on the unit. It is a universal feeling among good, dedicated nurses everywhere. You know your team is great, you know the care you're giving is safe. But deep down, sometimes there's that little voice that knows the chart doesn't always tell the whole complete story. And it's that gap, that space between the excellent care you give and the care you can prove you gave, that's where all the risk lives. Today, we're going to close that gap.
So, surveyors use this really simple but powerful method. It's called triangulation. They just look at three things to see if they all tell the same story. First, the chart. What did you document? Second, the interview. What do you and your coworkers say your process is? And third, observation. What do they actually see you doing at the bedside? So if your chart says you educate patients before giving a new med, and you tell them in the interview, yep, that's our process, and then they watch you do exactly that, well, all 3 points line up. The story is consistent. You're golden. But if that chart note is missing or what you say doesn't match what you do, that's a finding. It's really all about consistency.
So how does this whole thing actually play out on your unit? Let's pull back the curtain and just walk through the surveyor's process, step by step. Because when you know exactly what to expect, you take away that element of surprise. And that's what allows you to stay calm, stay focused, and stay in control. There's no magic here, just a very, very predictable sequence of events that you can absolutely prepare for. As you can see here, their path is predictable. It starts with arrival and patient selection. Now, this is not random. They are often picking patients with complex conditions, maybe multiple transfers, or those on high-risk meds. Why? Because national data tells them that's where system failures are most likely to happen. Now, step 2, and this is a real insider tip, is the chart review. A lot of the time, they're reviewing the electronic health record before they even step foot on your unit. They're already forming a little hypothesis about where the gaps might be. Then comes step 3, the staff interview, where they come find you to test that hypothesis. Step 4 is the bedside observation, watching a process in real time. And finally, the exit briefing, where they'll give you their initial findings. You can anticipate every single one of these stages.
Now, here is the good news in all of this. The entire process is transparent. This is not a game of gotcha. I promise you, they are not trying to trick you. They are simply looking for a clear, logical story of safe care that meets the standard. So when they ask you, show me the pain reassessment, it's not a trick question. It's an opportunity. It is an invitation for you to show them the evidence of the great, standard-compliant work that you are already doing. You're not guessing what they want. You're just providing the proof.
All right, now we are at the heart of it, the absolute core of your defense, your documentation. This is where you protect your license. It is so critical to understand that it's not about how you read your notes at the end of a 12-hour shift. It's about how a stranger,
An auditor, a lawyer, a state board investigator is going to read them, maybe months or even years from now. They don't have your context. All they have are the words on the screen.
I want you to burn this slide into your professional brain. This illustrates the single most important concept we're going to cover. It's the huge difference between care happened and care can be proven. Care happened is what you feel. It's what you know in your gut. You were there, you rounded, you gave the med, you had the conversation. But in a deposition or during a survey, care happened is just hearsay. The only thing that matters is the right side of this slide. Care can be proven. And that means the chart has a record so clear, so specific, so timely, that a complete stranger can read it and have zero doubt that safe, standard-compliant care was delivered. Your mission, every single shift, is to move your practice from that left column over to the right.
We have all heard this phrase, if it's not documented, it didn't happen. And I know it can land like an accusation, right? But I want you to see it differently. For years, I've watched this play out. This isn't a phrase meant to scare you. It is the cornerstone of patient safety and your legal defense. Your documentation is not another task. It is a safety-critical workflow. It's the only reliable tool that guarantees the next nurse, the next doctor, knows the full story so they can continue care safely. It's not a burden. It is a professional responsibility that protects everyone. And most of all, it protects you.
So how do you prove your care? You do it with something called closed-loop documentation. Just think of it like a complete safety circuit. Let's use a super common example. Your patient tells you they have 8 out of 10 pain. That's your assessment. Document it. You give a dose of IV morphine. That's your action. Document the time, dose, route. 30 minutes later, you go back and check. They now tell you their pain is a 3 out of 10. That's your evaluation. Document it. That is a perfect closed loop. You found a problem, you did something about it, and you check to see if what you did worked. That documented loop is the undeniable proof that you followed through and you kept that patient safe.
Okay, let's get really practical and talk about these high-risk scenarios. Now, why are they high risk? Well, because decades of data show these are the clinical situations where patient harm is most likely to happen and where documentation is often the weakest. These are the hotspots. This is where surveyors are going to look first. If you can learn to make your charting solid in these specific areas, you are going to be in great shape. And for a deeper dive on this, you have to download the Past Your Next Tracer sheet. Seriously, it's a total game changer.
Pain reassessment. This is the classic tracer finding. On the left is what we often see, pain meds given, and maybe a new pain score shows up an hour later, but the link between the two is broken. A surveyor expects to see that full time-stamped cycle of care we just talked about, an initial score, a time-stamped intervention, a reassessment that happens within your hospital's policy window, whether that's 30 minutes for IV or 60 for oral. And this is the key. If that pain is still uncontrolled, they need to see documented escalation. A quick note, Dr. Smith notified of continued pain awaiting new orders. That closes the loop and it protects you. Next up, patient falls. Falls are a massive legal liability, and they are a focus of every single survey. A note that just says fall risk interventions in place is not defensible. It's just too vague. A surveyor needs to see a direct line between the patient's specific risk and your specific actions. You documented a Morse fall score of 60? Great. Now they need to see that you also charted that the bed alarm is on, the patient has their non-skid socks on, and they're on a 2-hour toileting schedule. You have to prove you did the right things for that specific patient. And what if a patient refuses, like they keep turning off their bed alarm? You document the refusal, you document the education you provided on the risks, and you document that you notified the charge nurse or the provider. That is how you protect yourself. Handoffs are a huge focus because they are a critical point of failure in healthcare. A purely verbal report is completely invisible to a surveyor. As far as they're concerned, it didn't happen. They expect to see evidence of a structured, documented handoff, like a completed SBAR tool right there in the chart. And that note has to include active safety risks, fall risk, isolation status, suicide precautions. It has to include pending labs or procedures. And it needs to cover other key risks like medication delays. If a dose of an antibiotic was late, you need to document why and make sure that's passed on. And really, the best systems show that the oncoming nurse has received and acknowledged the report. That proves the transfer of care was safe and complete.
So here is a little challenge for you. Right now on your next shift, just try this. Can you open the chart and find the documented handoff note for the last patient you gave or received report on? And can you find it in less than 30 seconds? If you have to click through 10 screens or read 3 different free text notes, or if you can't find it at all, well, that's a major red flag.
Because if you can't find it quickly, I guarantee you a surveyor can't find it, and if they can't find it, it didn't happen.
Okay, let's shift gears from writing to speaking. Answering a surveyor's questions is a very specific skill. This is not a conversation with a colleague. It is a professional exchange where your only goal is to be factual, concise, and safe. Your words can either close an issue right then and there, or they can open up a brand new can of worms. Let's talk about how to do it right.
I want you to remember a simple 4-step method. I call it PASS. First, P is for pause. When they ask you a question, just take a breath. It stops you from giving a rushed, anxious answer. Second, A is for answer. Answer only the exact question they asked. If they ask, what time was the medication given, the answer is at 09:15, not a long story about how the pharmacy was late. Third, A is for anchor. Anchor your answer in the chart. Say, the medication was given at 09:15 as documented right here in the MAR. This points them back to the evidence. And finally, the most important and honestly the hardest step, S is for stop talking. Once you've answered factually, just be quiet. Don't volunteer extra info, don't explain what you usually do, don't feel like you have to fill the silence, just stop.
This right here should be your mantra during any interview. Do not speculate why another nurse did something. Do not guess a time if you're not 100% sure. Do not tell stories to try and provide context. You simply state what is documented in the record. If the information isn't in the chart, the safest and most professional answer is, let me just refer to the chart for that information. Speculating is like handing the surveyor a shovel and inviting them to dig deeper. Just stick to the documented facts. That will protect you, your colleagues, and the integrity of the whole process.
We've covered a ton of ground, from understanding the process to very specific tactics for your documentation and for answering questions. So now, let's bring it all together with a really powerful mindset shift. This is about changing how you view tracers for good. It's time to move from a place of fear to a place of professional confidence.
A tracer is not a trap. It is a mirror. It simply reflects what's already there, the clarity, the consistency, and the completeness of your documentation. So your goal isn't to get good at dodging some kind of trap. Your goal is to improve the reflection in the mirror. And when your charting is so clear, so complete, and so looped closed that it tells that story of safe care, that mirror is just going to reflect the excellent professional nurse you already are. And that is something to be proud of.
And to help with that, I want you to start using this daily mental checklist. Before you sign off on a patient's chart, just quickly run through these 4 questions. This is not about cramming for a test. It is about building strong professional habits that just become second nature. You'll find this exact checklist on the Pass Your Next Tracer sheet. Download it from the link, print it out, stick it in your locker, whatever you need to do, and make it part of your routine. It's your daily guide to confidence.
And please remember this. The goal here is clarity, not perfection. A perfect chart is a myth. Nursing is messy. It's unpredictable. But clear, consistent, defensible documentation, that is absolutely achievable. I've been a nurse a long time, and I've reviewed thousands of charts. The charts that stand up to scrutiny aren't the perfect ones. They're the clear ones. They're the ones that tell a logical, consistent story of a thoughtful nurse providing safe care. That is the standard. So I want to leave you with one question to take into your next shift. What is one small habit you can improve to make your care more proofable? Maybe it's just focusing on closing the loop on one single pain reassessment. Or maybe adding just a little more detail to one handoff note. Small, consistent changes are what build that unshakable, calm confidence on Tracer Day. You've got this. Now go download that sheet from the description below and get started.